Serious, what was a normal part of your life growing up that other people were shocked by? Took me forever to realize that an older sibling taking the role of an emotionally absent parent is not normal. My oldest sister was a mother for both myself and the middle child, who is only 1 year younger than the oldest. We are 30, 29, and 22. The three of us are all still incredibly close, and while my parents are still in the picture, we aren't exactly emotionally attached to our mother. One of my sisters said it was like we survived a war together, and I think that sums it up pretty well. We got out alive because of each other. Grew up with 7 siblings. 5 brothers and 2 girls. Between the brothers we had just 4 pairs of shoes, which meant that at least 2 of us had to stay at home. Went to school barefoot for almost a week before they called child services. Child neglect. My house was filthy, and I mean really filthy. Black mold covering the 2 different corners of a finished basement. Trash all over the floors. Never clean clothes because the washer and dryer were broken. Dinner once or twice a week with no food in the house. Whenever I'd go over a friend's house I'd notice, wow, it's so clean in here. Everything smells so nice. Look at all those snacks in the cupboard. That was my mother's house. Thank God she lost custody and I'm now with my outstanding dad. Edit. Responding to comments has been quite cathartic. Thank you everyone. To anyone who has gone through or knows someone going through this, let me tell you it does get better. I'm currently a senior in college, interning in Washington DC in the DC Superior Court with a 3.4 GPA after leaving freshman year of high school to move beneath my dad with 2.1. I've never had a family dinner at home. We just all get our food at different times and eat in separate locations. Kneeling on rice as a punishment for just about anything. Mom would throw a few handfuls of rice in a corner and you had to kneel on it for 20 minutes to an hour, hands behind your back, and don't you dare try to lean on that wall or you'd get smacked in the back of the head and into the wall and your time would start over. Afterwards you'd have to clean it up, including any blood from broken skin, and then often you'd have to help make dinner or do whatever chore as if nothing happened. Yeah, this was a common one for me and my friends too, having grown up in an area with a lot of Asian Americans. I remember reading The Secret Life of Bees in high school and the main character was punished by kneeling on a pile of grits and relating so hard to it, and when sharing that with a class I was looked at really strangely by anyone who wasn't Asian. Whenever my friends would come over, I would tell them about the rules you had to follow when talking to my dad. This would include, agree with everything he says, don't speak unless asked a question, always try and answer, don't say I don't know, don't cry when he has a go at you, etc. Took a few friends meeting my dad then refusing to come round again, being picked up early because they were upset, to realize that most kids don't live in constant fear of a parent and don't have a set rules in order to keep said parent calm and happy. One time I made a new friend from middle school and invited him over. We just had a normal evening of pizza and video games and watching shitty early internet flash movies. My parents would check up on us, but just let us be, and watched TV in the living room by themselves quietly. As the evening went on, he got kinda weird and withdrawn, and then took me aside to ask if me and my family were a bunch of fucking Bible thumpers, to which I incredulously replied no to. He basically explained that the lack of skin flicks lying around, loud arguments, strange people coming over, and holes punched in the walls was extremely off-putting to him. To him, that sort of constant instability and chaos was completely normal and something that regular average people did, and my quiet boring home life was a total outlier. It was kinda hard for us to be friends after that, and we drifted apart really fast. I hope he's doing alright. Poverty. I grew up in a gross place. My single father was a drunk and left the apartment a mess. The couch was covered in rips with stuffing coming out. Stains all over the floors. Flies. Crap everywhere. My best friend of almost 30 years was telling me a while back that when he first came over he was amazed at how poor we were, as he thought he was the poorest kid in town. I explained that a lot of it had to do with my dad just leaving it in a bad state and being too drunk to clean or to teach me or my brother to clean. But his mom did work and she kept their apartment clean. We had a good laugh on that. Luckily, my wife is clean, as were past girlfriends. These wonderful women taught me, along the way, how to maintain a clean home, to wash the shower once a week, to change sheets. I'm not a rich man, but I 100% feel live comfortably, in the literal sense. It's nice to come home to a clean one. Never being able to tell your parents the truth about where you are going. I remember the first time I realized it was weird when at a friend's house, we were leaving and all she said was we'll be back later, and her mom said have fun. I was shook, no interrogation, and her mom seemed to trust her. It was wild. This is fairly mild. My dad extensively renovated our house. He made every bench top, door frame, window, shelf, desk, sink, shower, cupboard, or drawer at a comfortable height for us. Our ceilings were 9 feet. My family is well over 6 feet, with my dad topping out at 6 feet 6. When people first came to my house they were shocked by the height of everything. We had little stools in the bathroom for short guests. We even had to get step stools in the children's room, because a normal height friends had issues getting on the couch when my siblings and I were younger. My house was the stuff of legend on the yard. We even had a giant dog which to us was normal sized. I have never been as comfortable in a house as I was in my childhood home. As a nation kid I grew up being disciplined physically. Got the belt, the hand, the slipper, wooden spoon, you name it. This had happened to me so much as a kid I literally thought this was normal and that all families did this. I remember being in 8th grade and having a conversation with my friends and we were talking about our parents and I nonchalantly was like, oh yeah, my mom hits me all the time. She always slaps me in the face, I'm used to it, because I genuinely and truly thought this was normal. I didn't realize how fucked up it was until my teacher brought me into the hallway to ask if my home life was okay and explained to me his duty to report thing. He asked if I wanted him to call. Obviously I said no. But I remember going forward this teacher used to walk on eggshells when it came to giving me bad comments or speaking with my parents during parent-teacher interviews because he didn't want me to get in trouble. My parents showed love, support, and financial stability. Came as a fucking shock to my wife. I grew up in this rickety old farmhouse in the middle of Minnesota. It was really cold a lot of the year, and our upstairs didn't have insulation, so we didn't have any heat upstairs. We'd sleep with an electric blanket and loads of other blankets heaped on top. When I woke up in the mornings, there would sometimes be frost on my walls, because it was so cold and the windows didn't keep the cold out very well. It would also sometimes get to -50 degrees Fahrenheit, and then school would automatically be cancelled because kids couldn't wait outside at the bus stop. And sometimes mom would take us outside to blow bubbles on really cold days. The bubbles would freeze in midair and fall to the ground and shatter. My friend/boyfriend were all shocked by this stuff. Doesn't get anywhere near as cold where we live now. The amount of trips to the liquor store. When I was young, nearly every time I got in the car with my mom or dad, the story was the same. We are going to stop at the liquor store then home. Sometimes when I'd switch parents, they are divorced, I'd stop at the liquor store twice, once each way. One day I was at a sleepover at a friend's house whose parents weren't extreme alcoholics. We ran errands on 3 or 4 separate times and didn't stop at the liquor store. 8-year-old me was so confused. On the final trip I poked my head up between the front seats and trying to be helpful and remind them said, aren't we going to stop at the liquor store? And the parents looked at me like I had 2 heads. No. I was so confused I just got out of the van and went inside. Traveling. My parents were divorced and my dad would fly my sister and I to wherever he was working once roughly every 2 years. Sure, it was cool to travel and go to Dubai, Egypt and Vietnam before I was 15, but I only got to see my dad for 2 weeks every 2 years. I just wanted to see my dad, man. My parents never took my siblings and I to the doctor or dentist unless bone was showing or you were on death's door. I always assumed it was because we couldn't afford it, but it wasn't until I was much older and in therapy I realized it was actually because my parents were controlling. Both of them worked in the medical field, but they weren't doctors, so they thought they knew better than everyone else. If we did get sick, I had chronic sinus infections as a child because I had terrible allergies, none of which they addressed. My dad would call his colleague's wife, who was a doctor, explain my symptoms, and she would prescribe antibiotics. My dad also forged my annual immunization forms for high school 1 year because he didn't want to take me. The dentist he used to take us to was his friend and would give him a discount, but I'd have to endure this man's sexist bullshit if I wanted my teeth cleaned. The last time I ever went to him, he told me as he's giving me a filling I should really get a nose job, I'd be so much prettier. My dad scolded me in the car after, thinking I had brought it up. It wasn't until I went to the doctor and for the first time in college, I had no fucking valuable piece of my medical history other than accidents I had as a kid. It was like I was starting new at age 20. I now go regularly to the doctor. The total lack of love. My brother and sister have always had a good relationship with my parents, but for reasons I don't understand my parents wished I didn't exist. I was an inconvenience at best. I once broke my ribs falling out of a tree. They made me wait 3 days until they had spare time to take me to hospital. Beatings were frequent. Beatings for any perceived mistake. Beatings for being bullied at school. The beatings I was told were to toughen me up. Beatings for crying while being beaten. I eventually figured out that the beatings, name calling and abuse all came from the same root cause, using up my parents' time and effort when they could have been spending it with my siblings or each other. So I tried to become invisible. I learned to move around the house silently, which floorboards squeaked, how to open and close doors without sound, how to control my breathing to be absolutely quiet. I set up a chair and books in my closet so I could be in there unseen for hours. It was only when I left home that I found out other children enjoyed spending time with their parents, that they talked to them, had fun with them, and were supported and cared for by them. I can't imagine how good that must feel. Even to have memories of cuddling on a sofa with a parent, or going to the park must be amazing. I've never had my own room. I grew up in one-roomed apartment with mum, dad, elder brother, a dog and a cat. We never had much space there, but a lot of furniture that was really necessary. People didn't understand why I never invite friends to my home. Are that jealousy when somebody complains about parents entering their room without knocking. I didn't know I was in a very religious family until I found out how abnormal it was in college. Like my family and I never missed Sunday Mass. We used to celebrate every first Friday of the month by dressing up nicely to go to a Latin Mass, which was like the original language said in the first Catholic Masses. We prayed the rosary a lot, and during the Lenten season we would go around churches to offer more rosaries and prayers. Plus our family has like 4 priests and 5 nuns. Now that I'm older though, a lot of the stuff we used to do happens less often. Although I still haven't missed Sunday Mass. I never took a vacation or seasonal trip with family as a kid. We just never had the money for it. When I tell people this, they're appalled that I've never been to Disneyland, beautiful islands or foreign countries in my youthful summers. Guess a lot of people I know can't fathom the idea that some families are poor. That and I've moved around a lot. Went to like 4 or 5 elementary schools and 3 middle schools. Just trying to find the next cheapest place to live. I don't know if it counts, but both my parents basically refused to leave the 90s. They act like teens, which I guess is cool. My dad is a total metalhead and my mom grunge. Our house basically looks like an old garage that a doom band would use. Our apartment is filled with old Polaroids, instruments, band posters, anything motorcycle related and cats, and music is always playing on the radio or pickup. I don't have a problem. I like it. But when my friends come they say that they feel like they enter a different time period. My parents never gave gifts on time and rarely kept them a secret. There was no waiting excitedly or patiently for Christmas morning in my house. If the gifts came early, Christmas could be the 16th of December, or if they came late, it could be the 20th of January. When I was younger, my parents usually didn't have enough money saved up in time to buy the presents, and honestly my mom had poor planning on when she should buy them for shipping to make it in time. It never bothered me and my brother, because it was a Russian roulette of what day Christmas would come, which I think is more fun. Now that my parents have more money, we don't give gifts on time anyway out of habit. Sometimes I'll get an expensive gift in April and be told it's my late Christmas or early birthday gift. My birthday is in September. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and comment below your stories to be part of a future video.